The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards.
Waiting in line in a driving rain, very motivated Trump supporters wanting to see the president in person in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
We are Q.
Some of those people wearing and holding the 17th letter of the alphabet.
Are you holding a big red, white, and blue Q? Why do you have that?
It's a movement, man. It's the shift. I can feel it coming. Some call it the Great Awakening.
You're wearing a shirt that says Q, WWG, 1WGA. What does that mean?
It means where we go one, we go all.
QAnon is the people that believe in what Trump's trying to do to change our country.
That is a generalization. More specifically, what QAnon is a fringe movement in which many baseless conspiracy theories are discussed on the internet, organized around the idea of an anonymous but well-connected person or persons nicknamed Q.
Your shirt says the storm is here, QAnon. What does that mean to you?
Well, I've been following all the posts since October 28th.
On the internet, from QAnon.
Right, started on 4chan.
The person or people who say they're Q.
Right.
What do you think Q is, by the way?
It's an entity of 10 or less people that have
involved with the government?
high clearance, security clearance.
And how do you know that?
Well, I'm just telling you, this is what it appears to be.
What it appears to be. So you don't have any proof of that. That's what you're guessing it is.
And you don't have any proof there isn't.
We've all been gathering online and talking together as Americans and uniting. And
do you think it's maybe just it makes you comfortable talking with other frustrated, sometimes angry people?
Yes.
But maybe it's not true because there's no evidence of it. It's just stuff being talked about on the internet, right?
There hasn't been any non-evidence yet.
A major mantra among QAnon followers? The press is the enemy.
You guys are.
So you don't believe in the First Amendment?
Oh, I totally believe in the First Amendment.
Well, you don't. You just said the press is the enemy.
Well, you guys are weaponized. You guys are totally weaponized by the CIA.
What is that?
You guys are weaponized
by the CIA.
by the CIA.
I don't know anybody in the CIA except a couple of people I've interviewed over the years.
Okay.
But weaponized, what does that even mean? Like you say stuff that doesn't even mean anything.
The term
weaponized by the CIA.
Conspiracy theorists. The term.
Do you think I'm weaponized by the CIA?
Maybe not to your knowledge, and that's unfortunate.
You believe there is a deep state?
Yes.
And what do you think that deep state's doing? You think they're running this country?
I think they were, and they're petrified now. Right. Because they're losing their control.
But Donald Trump's the president. He's running the country, right?
Yeah, but he's having to fight against the deep
he
state.
said he could do it all himself. Everything would be so easy when he came into office. And you think he's fighting with the deep state a year and a half into his term?
I think he's been fighting since before he was elected.
And who is in this deep state? Who are the people in it?
Oh, I definitely believe that, like the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas.
So you think the Clintons, the Bushes, and the Obamas are running this country as we stand here in the rain?
No, they're trying.
The anonymous Q is a hero to many here. One man actually hoping to communicate with Q by looking straight into our camera.
Is it possible you're believing bogus information, yes or no?
Is it possible that I'm believing bogus information? Yeah. I mean, let's see. Let's see, Q. Let's see.
Conservatism is a racket.
It is. It's a racket of very weak-minded, vulnerable people. My favorite was the woman who said she finds it comforting. That's the whole thing with Q. She finds it very comforting to be in some sort of a family. Okay, it's the new gang. It's the new gang. It's the new online gang. And another day, another rally. Another day, another rally. And now another fringe group. We spent a lot of time talking about this group because they are dangerous. They've gone from nasty to dangerous, okay? They really believe that the media is the enemy of the people. They really believe that newspapers are lying. They really believe that reporters are tools of the CIA. They really believe that somehow Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and the Bushes have all gotten together and that they are running the government and Trump is just flailing around having to fight them. And there's some new awakening and it's going to come. And Trump is their deliverer, and Q is their leader. And, Q is either Russian Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka, Brad Parscale, Stephen Miller, or all of them together. Okay? And I got a lot of emails last night. What did I tell you about writing me at night? What did I say to you people? But, of course, I feel the pull to have to answer you. So the older listeners said, hey, Q is right out of a James Bond movie. Don't you remember Q in the James Bond movies? No. then the younger people said, Q is something out of a Star Trek movie. Don't you remember Q in the Star Trek movies? No, because I'm not into it. But anyway, it's just so amazing how you have this new fringy thing. So the Freedom Crackers and Q now and the Tea Party and all these fringy people, they will always figure out a way to not have to say that everything that their policies stand for hurts them. Meaning they will continue to vote against their own best interests over and over and over again, even if they have to believe mysterious people that don't exist in reality on the internets and disinformation campaigns and misinformation campaigns and lies, etc., in order to keep on voting against their own best interest. They're so malleable. I mean, it's just a frightening thing. And so, like I said, it was another day, another asinine Trump rally last night. But it was good to see that he gave the QAnon people just a little chance to get away from their computer screens for a day, because it's like going to Hempfest before pot was, beginning to be legalized. We used to do this thing. I used to do it, and it's really weird because I don't smoke pot, and I think everybody, can attest to that and knows it. I mean, why would I not tell you if I did? There's no reason. So, I mean, back in the day it was illegal, but it's not really anymore, and you got medical marijuana here in the state I'm living in, and trust me, I don't like it. But I believe in freedom, and I believe in, freedom to smoke the pot because it's not a narcotic. And it had a lot of health benefits that I was aware of since my mother had cancer and, used it to allow her to get rid of nausea from cisplatinum chemotherapy, which is, heavy duty platinum based heavy metal being pumped into your body, which is what makes you so sick. And the marijuana that I was rolling her back in the day was giving her some relief and allowing her to eat. And she only weighed 92 pounds, my mother, back then. I mean, she was a little thing. And so, weight loss brought her down to like 86 pounds. So I have always campaigned for marijuana. And I used to go to Hempfest. Do you remember Hempfest? Yeah, and I would host it. I would actually host it. And it was like 300,000 people. I mean, it was an amazing thing. And I would always ask them, like, who's watching the cartoon channel if you're all here? That's how I feel about QAnon. Who's on Reddit if they're all in Pennsylvania at the rally? And this rally, so I was relieved to see them all getting out and getting a little exercise, but there they were last night, Trump doing the same old crap that he always did, just making stupid mistakes. And these people, it's just so weird. I mean, he keeps referring to the UK as, that's my email, it's still open. I'll close it during the break. But he keeps on referring to the UK as England. Isn't he Scottish or something? I mean, isn't he supposed to be? I know he's German, but he believes he's Scottish, right? I mean, he makes fun of Elizabeth Warren, tells her to take a DNA test, but he doesn't know exactly where he's from. But he is from Germany. His family, migrated from Germany. Okay, he's still got a lot of, German in him. Let's say Nazi, but. Honestly, he says he's Scottish and his mother came from Scotland and all this, and yet he doesn't understand that the United Kingdom includes Wales and Scotland and Ireland. And I mean, and these people just stand there and listen to the President of the United States on the most simple of things, just get it wrong, and they cheer him.
I have great respect for the UK, United Kingdom, great respect. People call it Britain, they call it Great Britain, they used to call it England, different parts.
He's such an idiot. Yay! We love you! Yay! And I gotta tell you, there's a guy that works with Howard who is so in the tank for Donald Trump. He's an older man. He's so in the tank for Donald. He just thinks he's like a QAnon person, really. He's got it really bad. And he's texting during this rally last night with the Howard, and Howard's going, we're about an hour into it, and he's still talking about his election 2 years ago. What is that about? No, just be patient. It's part of the master plan. What? He went on and on and on and on and on.
Pennsylvania, for years and years they talked about Pennsylvania will be won by the Republicans, right? It always got away. Nobody knew what happened. It always got away, but we won the state of Pennsylvania. Remember? Remember? Remember that incredible night in November?
Incredible.
Remember that incredible night? And you remember that we were way up in Pennsylvania.
Okay, I just want you to look at who he chose to surround himself with in this particular setting, okay? He's got all these little kids. This is so sick. It's like child abuse is what this is. All these little kids. And then he's got this guy over his left shoulder. This guy, okay? See this guy right here? If you're watching this? Watch this guy. He is completely unhinged. He's so overjoyed. He's like he's gonna plot. He's plotting. This is what plotting looks like if you never saw it. I mean, he's like pooping his pants. Is what it.
And there was only 2% of the vote left, and we were way up. If I lost every vote, we would have won the state of Pennsylvania. And the fake news refused to call it. Right?
God. Pointing at little children.
To call it.
Sick. It's like the Hitler Youth, right? Yeah. CNN sucks. Little kids screaming CNN sucks and then telling each other.
We waited for hours. We were at 98%. I said, what's going on? I want to win with the state of Pennsylvania. And then some interesting things happened before they called. They just refused. They said Donald Trump has won the great state of Wisconsin. Right? They said Donald Trump has won for the first time in many years, both of them, the great state of Michigan. And you people didn't get the privilege of taking us over the top.
Oh, my God.
Next time. Next time.
What, are you going to run from jail? Next time. That was just a taste, okay? He surrounded himself with little youth, a black guy, an old man, and a sycophant that was just, he was plotting. He was just like, he couldn't believe his extraordinary luck to be in the presence of the great man. He only talked about, again, the fake news. He literally, and it's so weird because Jim Acosta had just had this exchange yesterday with Sarah and said, please, could you just from this podium say that we are not the enemy of the people? She wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it. She went on a tear about how her life's been threatened and all these other things have happened to her. And none of that happened because CNN did anything to her. You know what I mean? She was spontaneously protested at the Red Hen restaurant. Jim Acosta even apologized to her and said, I'm sorry that happened to you, but it has nothing to do with us, Sarah. We didn't report, anything about you. The comedian that did the jokes about you, that wasn't a CNN person. Why are you doing this against, ordinary reporters who work their asses off every day, every single day? And they bring the actual legislation to the American people. They show what was in the bill. They show that this bill wasn't even funded. They show that you haven't gotten a wall. They show that Mexico isn't never going to pay for the wall. They show that this man lies on any given day of the week, and you could play video of one thing he said here, and then the next day saying there, and then the next day saying something else, and then the next day going back. And it's very disorienting. Why won't you just say, we're doing our jobs? Why do we have to be... Meanwhile, Trump puts himself in an arena of people who apparently get their news from Reddit. An arena full of people who get their news online from some half-baked message boards. And we know that because CNN interviewed them as they were going in to the freaking rally. And we know that Trump knows about this because they're holding up Q signs 2 rows ahead of him and wearing Q t-shirts and holding up the letter Q. They're like MS-13, a very small part of the fabric of our society, and yet they name themselves after a letter in the alphabet. What is that? I mean, it's just unbelievable. This is a sickness.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
You know, they kept saying the state of Texas, which I thought,
my God.
every rally I went to was like this. And by the way, you think this is a big crowd? Go outside and take a look.
It's Trump's greatest hits, everybody.
But I'd go to Texas, and I said, boy, are we popular in Texas. All right, get him out. Get him out.
Free speech, everybody. Free speech.
Get him out of here. So, getting back to Texas.
Oh, my God, he cannot stop. You know, that was about an hour into it. He spoke last night for almost 2 hours because he really needs the rally juice. He really needs it bad because Mueller is closing in, as we all know. And now Mueller wants to talk to Emin Agalarlarv. And Emin Agalarlarv is the son of Aris Agalarlarv, who arranged for the Trump Tower meeting with little Donnie Jr. Now, there's a method to why I'm doing this. There's a reason why I'm subjecting you to this stupid rally where there is no free speech, where there are people who are getting fake news off of a Reddit site, being interviewed ahead of the event so that you can know, yes, these are people who literally get their news from a message board that's run by white supremacists and the Trump administration, I'm guessing, and a little bit of Russia, okay? And they show up, and he talks about England, and he talks about the UK. He doesn't know anything. He talks about Iran last night. He talks about the most, but only for like 13 seconds. He brings stuff up, and then, of course, he plays the race card, using MS-13 to represent an entire section of the world. Do you know? I mean, an entire region of the world. And it's unfortunate because when he picks on that region, I lived in that region. I know that region. You have helped people in that region. By the way, Hector Jr. finally got his money today. Yeah, very excited. Very excited. But I mean, honest to God, they pick on this region that I'm so familiar with. It's just so bizarre. It's so hateful. It's so ugly. But while all this was going on last night, Junior, I mean, obviously he knows Mueller's getting there. He's afraid to sit down with Mueller. This man is a coward. You know that. You know that he's a bully because he's a coward. You know that he says these things because he's afraid to do these things. You know that his son is also a douchebag. His son, when I see Beavis and Butthead, especially together, I mean, the resemblance is uncanny. And the level of acumen is uncanny. I mean, they're such basement dwellers, these kids. And if not for their father's money that he inherited from his father, these kids would be bartenders in Colorado somewhere, right? And there's just no question about it. But every time I look at that smug little face of Junior, who arranged for the Russians to come on in, and we're supposed to believe he didn't tell Daddy, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And now we find out about a pre-meeting. So there were 2 meetings. And now we know about the emails where Emin Agalarlarv and Aris Agalarlarv are emailing Junior saying the Russian government supports your dad and we want to give you dirt on Hillary Clinton on behalf of the Russian government. Would you meet with Natalia Veselnitskaya? She's, a Kremlin, Yuri Chaika is the prosecutor in Russia. Obviously, he prosecutes all Putin's enemies. And he's sending her over there and she'll be there settling, she'll be there fighting the Prevazon case. And won't it be great if she could come up to your office? She'll bring you dinner. And he go, oh, if it's what you say it is, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So now Mueller wants to talk to Emin Agalarlarv and ask him, about these emails that Mueller has, because we've seen them, right? And, they're afraid. Everybody's afraid. So Junior, while his dad was in Pennsylvania, which is becoming a very one-sided love affair, okay? Pennsylvania is not down with the Nazi Trump. He's not. So Junior goes to the movies last night. Junior decides he's going to go to Washington, D.C. last night, and he's going to attend the opening of the recently pardoned Dinesh D'Souza's movie. Dinesh D'Souza's movie. Now, I hope that Dinesh explained to Junior how you get a pardon from his dad, because it seems to me Junior's going to need one. But remember, I think that Trump likes Dinesh more than he likes his own son, right? Because he's criticized his son in public many, many times. I mean, it's a sick relationship, and Junior is just, dying for dad's approval, just like Trump is dying for his dad, Fred, the dead Fred. So Junior goes to the movie. I'm going to show you a trailer for the movie first. This is really sick, okay? Because it'll put it all in context for you. The recently pardoned Dinesh D'Souza had a screening last night of his brand new movie.
The very term Nazi is a compression of two words, nacional and socialista. Check out the official Nazi platform. State-controlled healthcare, profit sharing for workers and large corporations, money lenders and profiteers punished by death, state control of education, state control of media and the press, state control of banks and industries, seizure of land without compensation, state control of religious expression. This reads like something jointly written by Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders.
Oh my God.
Read the Nazi platform at the Democratic National Convention, and most likely it would provoke thunderous applause.
Death of a nation.
It is now up to us to save America.
Okay, you get it? You get that? Okay, so that is Dinesh D'Souza's new movie. Oh, I did something really bad here. Here, wait, I bet I could fix it. Okay, I'm good. And Junior decided to go to the screening, the opening, right? And Junior was interviewed by, I can't really pronounce this guy's name, Mike Probroshik. Anyway, he runs a white supremacy website. I'm not kidding. And the white supremacists interview Mike Probroshik. He's a white supremacist. Actually, saw Don Jr. at the preview of Dinesh D'Souza's "The Democrats Are Nazis" movie, and interviewed Jr., who said the most disgusting, just ignorant crap based on Dinesh D'Souza's ridiculous rewriting of the Nazi platform.
Well, I think you just got to talk about the facts. You got to talk about the history. You got to look at the platforms. I mean, one of the most interesting things, I put it out on my social last night, was when I was watching the movie before this to make sure, hey, am I coming to something that makes sense? Is, you see the Nazi platform in the early 1930s and what was actually put out there as there, and you look at it compared to like the DNC platform of today, and you're saying, man, those things are awfully similar to a point where it's actually scary. And I mean, to me, that was one of the most striking things I took from the movie, and it's because it's the exact opposite of what you've been told. When you have, a bunch of kids in dreadlocks running around screaming about fascism and all these things, it's like, wait a second, have you actually taken a history class? Do you actually know what these words mean that you're running around and spewing? And I think they don't.
Okay, here is the Nazi platform. Here it is. I actually have it. I tweeted it out last night. I just couldn't believe he said this. At a time when his dad has little children, babies, infants, toddlers, in baby jails, separating the mothers from their father, separating the mothers from their children, separating fathers from their children. Very Nazi-like stuff as a deterrent not to come here, closing America off, and creating this racist feeling about people in Central America who happen to be the salt of the earth. These are the nicest people. These are the most hardworking dudes you ever met in your life. These are the most family-oriented people. These are loving mothers and fathers. These are people that are, living with corrupt governments. These are people who are living under suppression. They have death squads in El Salvador. They have the engineering students in Nicaragua are literally being shot and killed by a dictator named Ortega in Nicaragua at their schools. Okay, I mean it's so ridiculous. And Trump, believe me, he didn't leave it alone last night either. He just he went off on painting with this broad brush that for some reason, the Central Americans are responsible for your lot in life. That's why.
I know the people of Pennsylvania very well.
Oh, God.
And they're not for super liberal Democrats. They're just not, unless maybe the world has changed. But Bob Casey wants open borders, which means crime. It means crime. You see this. He wants people to pour in, and if they pour in by the millions, that's, I guess, okay. I don't get it. Lou, yeah. Build it. We're building it. We're building it.
We're building it.
We're building it.
You're building nothing. This is such a con.
So we've started the wall, $1.6 billion. We're fixing walls all over the border.
You're doing repairs on fences.
And we're going to start to get very nasty over the wall. You know, the Democrats, anything I want, and it's not even the Republicans. I don't know if they care about the Republicans. They care about me. They're very concerned. Anything I want, they want to oppose. You know, I just figured out how to do the wall. I'll say, I don't want to build a wall, and they'll insist on building it.
Yes, you're a stable genius.
I just figured that out right now. So Bob Casey doesn't mind MS-13
there you go.
Coming in.
Really?
These are the slicers. They slice people up, and hey, remember I called them animal, and Nancy Pelosi scolded me. How dare he call another human being an animal? They're animals.
You have little kids behind him cheering, calling human beings animals. I mean, this was just, it was so Nazi. It was so amazing. And of course, you know, MS-13 they've been in the United States since the 80s. These are their children's children. It's less than 1/100th of 1% of our population, and he's using, a gang, and we've had gangs in this country since the Hells Angels and even before, right? I mean, it's so ridiculous. And he's using, it's like saying my father was a member of the Amboy Dukes from Amboy Street in Brooklyn, and that my father, is dangerous and he's responsible for your lot in life. The Amboy Dukes, we must build a wall around Brooklyn or whatever. I mean, this is what he does. And you know what's so interesting is that Junior is, he's now trying to rewrite history because Dinesh D'Souza made a movie rewriting the Nazi platform and putting into people's minds that Democrats are the real Nazis, even though his father is separating women from their children as we speak, can't connect 410 kids to their parents because they've already deported their parents without their children, without giving them any idea when they'll ever see their children again. Okay, I just want to read you the Nazi platform, okay? Here. 1. A union of all Germans from a great Germany on the basis of the right to self-determination of people. So make Germany great again. Okay? 2. Abolition of the Treaty of Versailles. Throw away the Iran deal. Throw away TPP. Throw away NATO. Throw away all of the alliances that the American, that we are signatories to, right? 3. Land and territory. Colonies for our surplus population. See, that's what Dinesh D'Souza has twisted into seizing land, okay? Seizing land. No, it was taking land from 1% of the population. Jews in Germany during the 30s were 1% of the entire German population. That's why I bring up this whole thing about MS-13, which is like 1/100th of 1% or 1/100th of 1/10th of 1% of the population in the United States. The real number is there are probably 10,000 people that are involved in gang activity known as MS-13. And over this 10,000, he has decided that he is going to sully the reputation of anybody that speaks Spanish in this country, of anybody who, knows Spanish. I guess that includes me. You know what I mean? It's so amazing. But they wanted to build the Germans in their platform where they were going to seize territory and land and they were going to put their surplus population in that land. That reminds me of tent cities or internment camps that the United States has done before and is doing now, building tent cities for the surplus population. German blood. Okay, this whole blood thing, this is white supremacy, but this is really white German supremacy, okay? German blood is a requirement for German citizenship. No Jew, this is their platform, no Jew can be a member of the nation. That sounds just like the Democrats, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Only citizens can vote, which he said yesterday. He said at the other rally, right? They want illegals to vote. Remember, he keeps pushing this stupid thing out about how we want, illegals from Central America who are apparently all dangerous. They're all MS-13, and they should not be allowed to vote. And yet Democrats are fighting for illegal aliens' right to vote, which is just hysterical. Only citizens, and citizens are defined as people who have German blood as a requirement for German citizens can vote. Okay? And only German citizens, as defined by their German blood heritage as a requirement for German citizenship, can hold public office. The state ensures that every citizen live decently and earn his livelihood. Earn his livelihood. So there's no safety net, right? You got to work. Work will make you free, right? Okay. Sounds a lot like the Republicans. Also, if it is impossible to provide food for the whole population, aliens will be expelled. Sounds so familiar, doesn't it? You see, there is a reason I make you suffer through these speeches, okay? No further immigration. Build that wall. Yeah. No further immigration. Any non-German who entered Germany after August 2nd, 1914, this is the 30s, shall leave immediately. Forced deportation then ensued, just so you know. A thorough reconstruction of our national system of education. The science of German citizenship shall be taught from the beginning. Now, does that comport with anything Dinesh D'Souza represented that it says? And he showed it to Junior in his movie in German. Okay. And finally, having to do with the media, all newspapers must be published in the German language by German citizens who prove their citizenship through their German blood, as well as owners of newspapers must prove their citizenship through their German blood. And all newspapers must be published in German language by German citizens and owners. It's very Trumpian. But you got little Trump at.
Plus, I think you just got to talk about the facts. You got to talk about the history. You got to look at the platforms. I mean, one of the most interesting things, I put it out on my social last night, was when I was watching the movie before this to make sure, hey, am I coming to something that makes sense? Is, you see the Nazi platform in the early 1930s and what was actually put out there as there, and you look at it compared to like the DNC platform of today, and you're saying, man, those things are awfully similar.
It's scary, everybody. No, your father he used to read Mein Kampf as bedtime reading, and he learned from reading that book that Hitler was basically a media creation, okay? Hitler did all that Hitler did through rallies and speeches and intimidation and pointing at 1% of the population and saying they're responsible for your lot in life, and that's the reason why you can't eat, and so we must expel anybody that can't prove German bloodlines from 1914.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, I'm going to play you another clip of the white privilege poster child, Don Jr. He's being interviewed, as you can see, by OAN. OAN is a fake news network. It is run by a white supremacist, okay? OAN, if you ever see One American News, It's like DC Leaks, which started the Pizzagate there. I mean, this is all fake. This is super, super fake news that is branded to look like something real. This is where the Q people tune in, okay? They get all their news from the internets and from white supremacists and white supremacy websites. And Don Jr. has a microphone shoved in front of his face, and this guy is a white supremacist host that runs this network. And he'll talk to him about how Nazi, Democrats are. Can I just explain to you very, very, very quickly before I run this ridiculous thing, that the big enemy of Adolf Hitler in Congress, in his Reichstag, in his Congress, were the Social Democrats. That's what they were called, Social Democrats. They are again today. Social Democrats fought Hitler tooth and nail, okay? And they were killed. They were literally killed. The SS, the OAS, his freaking brown shirts hunted down his political enemies and killed them. And the political enemies were, Democratic Socialists. Just saying. But these people have rewritten history. And Junior is so stupid. So stupid.
I've been out hearing the left talking about all these things, fascism, Nazism on the right, and when you look at the actual history of how these things evolved, and when you actually look at that platform versus the platform of the modern left, you say, wait a minute, those two are really heavily aligned and frankly contrary to the right. And so it's really more about just having actual real history being out there. When people talk about these things, you can't just spew that because someone told you that in a history class when academia and everything has been so influenced and so wrongly influenced by left. So I think it's important just to have that message out there based on actual facts, based on actual history, because it's just not what we've been told. And I think when you look at the movie, you'll see that there is a very distinct and clear difference between what actually happened and what is being sold to our youth today.
Oh my God, it's like Holocaust denying. I swear to God, it's denying history because Dinesh D'Souza, who got pardoned by his daddy, had a movie it was a book, by the way, a really heinous, ugly, disgusting book. And it didn't become real for Don Jr., of course, like any Trump. While it was a book, he had to go and preview the movie to make sure he was coming to something that was worthwhile, because he never read Dinesh D'Souza's ridiculous rewriting of history book. So now that it's a movie, he decided he'd pre-screen it and then show up and say, the Democrat platform is the Democratic platform is very similar to the Nazi platform, which I just read you.
Well, I think you just got to talk about the facts. You got to talk about the history. You got to look at the platforms. I mean, one of the most interesting things I put it out on my social last night was when I was watching the movie before this to make sure, hey, am I coming to something that makes sense? You see.
Hey, am I coming to something that makes sense? What are you, speeding? Are you on Adderall? Is it straight amphetamine? Is it meth? What is it with it? He just put it in self-authority. He's talking to a white supremacist news network that he knows is fake. And his dad is on stage at the same time in Wilkes-Barre and talking about fake news. And his son is being interviewed by fake news as this president continues to separate mothers from their children by invoking, this gang that's been in the United States for, 30, 40 years? Why? Because Ronald Reagan invaded El Salvador in the 80s with a secret illegal war. Oh, my God. And the head of the NRA now, Oliver North, he was in charge of laundering all the money to effect that. And so we had this mass exodus of people coming, from El Salvador because we waged war on it's just so. And he wants to, it's a very, the Democratic, have you ever noticed how similar the Democratic platform is to the Nazi platform? No, nobody has, because it isn't. Here, the Democratic platform is 76 pages long. I just want people to know this. It has a name. It's called The Better Deal. And yes, it's sort of a homage to Teddy Roosevelt's Square Deal and FDR's New Deal. So this is called The Better Deal, and it also refers to Donald Trump because he's the art of the deal, and his deal sucks. His deal is for oligarchs. His deal is for foreign adversaries. His deal is for petrol states. His deal is to roll back emission standards, so we have to use more Russian oil. It's a sick thing. Everything he does is sick. Suspending security at smaller airports this week. It's just, okay, but let's focus here, okay? Our platform deals with inequality, the domination of corporate money in our politics, an infrastructure package. Minimum wage should be $15 an hour. It focuses on a living wage. It focuses on getting Medicare to negotiate with Big Pharma to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, Medicaid expansion, okay? Higher wages to alleviate people who are working 2 and 3 jobs at low wage, jobs. They can't even be home with their family. Getting the antitrust, like trust busting, good old fashioned trust busting, because it's like, why did we even allow Exxon to merge with Mobil? Why did we even do that? That was Bill Clinton's deregulation period. Why did we allow Clear Channel to buy all the mom and pop radio stations so that all we have now is conservatives on every single radio station in one market? Our economy is more concentrated, wealth is more concentrated, so we look at trust busting in this platform of ours. How in the hell does that have anything to do with blaming a race for your lot in life, or separating mothers and children, or having, like purity tests and white supremacy, which is what they preach every single freaking day. Every day. Deregulation. We want regulation. We want the Consumer Financial Protection Agency to see that once again, these junk stocks are being made again with the mortgages. They're doing the same damn thing. They're chopping up the good mortgages with the bad mortgages. This liar debt, it's all being created again. Why? Because they got rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Agency and they put Mick Mulvaney in charge of it. Okay? And they made it toothless. We want to crack down on prescription drug price. I mean, this thing is 76 pages long. It is a plan. I mean, I where the hell do they get the nerve? I just don't understand where they get the nerve to say this crap out loud.
The Nazi platform in the early 1930s and what was actually put out there and you look at it compared to like the DNC platform of today, and you're saying, man, those things are awfully similar to a point where it's actually scary. And I mean, to me, that was one of the most striking things I took from the movie, and it's because it's the exact opposite of what you've been told. When you have, a bunch of kids in dreadlocks running around screaming about fascism and all these things, it's like, wait a second, have you actually taken a history class? Do you actually know what these words mean that you're running around and spewing? And I think they don't.
He is the poster child for white privilege. He is the poster child for smarmy. He is so grotesque, and the only thing that would please me is to see him go to jail, and not because I don't like him. See, the law does not work that way. The law says that if you conspired with a foreign government, let alone an adversary, but if you conspired with a foreign government to benefit an American electoral campaign, then you go to jail. Conspiracy to defraud the United States is a serious matter. He did that. And unless justice is served, when justice is served, he will go to jail. If it's not served, he will remain going to Dinesh D'Souza movies, and Dinesh will sit in the dark and explain to Junior how you get a pardon from your dad. And what was Dinesh D'Souza's crime? It was campaign finance violations. He used straw donors to support a candidate named, what was her name? Wendy Long. Wendy Long was a Republican who was challenging Kirsten Gillibrand in New York. And Dinesh D'Souza got straw donors to give him money, and he made the campaign contribution to hide their participation. And he went to jail. I mean, he really was, I think he got 8 months or something like this. And Dinesh D'Souza is the guy who distorts American history over and over and over again. But it's so, I mean, there's books. But the Trump boys don't read books, so they had to pre-screen the movie and then swear by it. This was sick. This was really sick. Like I said this week, who is trying to bypass Congress? This is what Hitler did. The Nazis started moving very quickly in like 1933, okay? And that's when they started bypassing Congress with emergency war powers acts and stuff like that, right? And now all of a sudden we have Steve Mnuchin this week saying that he wants to give even more tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. And what we don't need no stinking Congress. I'll use rules at the Treasury and I'll index their investment costs to inflation so that the profit looks smaller when they cash out. And I don't need no stinking Congress. That's exactly what Hitler did. That's exactly what he did. They used Article 48, just like Trump is using national security reasons to screw up our economy with these trade wars that he's involved in. And, they bypassed the Congress and they enacted their own laws, telling everybody they had to do it because it was a Great Depression. And so they had, war powers. They had, granted to themselves the ability to make change, the ability to. And Hitler seized on that. And he used that to sign off to eliminate his opposition, increase his power, and dismantle the democracy that was going through a Great Depression, because the whole world was. Why? Because of freaking the stock market. There were no regulations. And in 1929, the whole system failed. It was global. It was unbelievable. And we got FDR and they got Adolf. And the whole thing's happening all over again. And every duck is in a row for the economy to crash all over again, including this ridiculous trade war. All of it. It's all there. It's all happening. And, yesterday you had the intelligence community standing there going, yeah, Russians are still here, still doing it.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards.
The very term Nazi is a compression of two words, Nacional and Socialista. Check out the official Nazi platform. State-controlled healthcare, profit sharing for workers and large corporations, moneylenders and profiteers punished by death, state control of education, state control of media and the press, state control of banks and industries, seizure of land without compensation, state control of religious expression. This reads like something jointly written by Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Read the Nazi platform at the Democratic National Convention, and most likely it would provoke thunderous applause.
It looks like a Trump rally.
Death of a nation.
It is now up to us
Look
to
at
save
that.
America a second time.
In theaters August 3rd.
That's today. I'm trying to give you a little head start there. No, that's Dinesh D'Souza's new movie where he actually has Abraham Lincoln's face, half the face, and the other half the face is Donald Trump. This is a man who, like I said, is, giving all the money in the Treasury to the richest Americans, going around Congress to do it, telling you that you're going to pay more, you're going to need to burn more fuel because he's going to roll back fuel efficiency. He's not going to provide you any security at small regional airports anymore. He bypasses Congress, to do these stupid executive orders. He is a media figure. He's a reality TV star. He makes, people follow him by giving these massive rallies and lying. It's so unbelievable. And none of that, I just read you the Nazi platform, is in the Democratic platform. The Democratic platform deals with income inequality, $15 minimum wage, Medicare negotiating. This is real sexy stuff, huh? Medicare negotiating with Big Pharma to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, trust busting to break up, huge corporate monopolies, the inequality in our nation, and the corporate domination of money, corporate money in our politics. Yeah, that's real Nazi stuff, isn't it, everybody? Isn't it? The platform, the Nazi platform says if you can't afford to eat, then you have to work harder. That sounds a lot like Republicans. The purity of your bloodline, that sounds a lot like Donald Trump and his white supremacy. The colonization of undesirables, which is in the Nazi platform, it sounds exactly like his tent cities. The demonization of a tiny sliver of the population. As I said, Jews in Germany during this, the beginning of Hitler, all through the Holocaust, represented 1% of the population of Germany. And I hate to tell you, gang members are like 1/10, 1/4, let alone a specific gang. It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Hitler suspended every single part of the Constitution that protected personal freedoms. He legalized the arrest of any political opponent. Mostly he went after social democrats. He issued decrees making it illegal to speak out against the government. He made it not only illegal, but at the beginning when he didn't make it illegal to speak out against him, you would be intimidated into shutting up or leaving the country. You know, let me give you a little timeline here of what Hitler did. February 27th, 1933. That was less than a month after Hitler was made chancellor. Now, just so you understand, Hitler was chancellor of Germany, and then Hindenburg was the president. And when Hindenburg died, Hitler combined the role of chancellor and the role of president and created a new role called the Führer. So that's how that happened. But on February 27, 1933, that was 1 month after Hitler became the chancellor, all of a sudden we had a terrorist attack. It's just so fascinating. The Reichstag building in Berlin was set on fire. That's Congress, okay? It was set on fire. And to this day, historians debate who did it. Hitler actually chose to immediately blame the Social Democrats, blame the communists. And then the day after the Reichstag fire, Hitler used emergency powers. There's a part of their constitution called Article 48. It's kind of like when, Trump invokes, his rules on trade. And he says, Article whatever, I forget which, 2 or 22, says he can invoke national security and start a trade war and punish farmers and punish Harley manufacturers and punish anybody who uses steel to make nails in Missouri, whatever. It's all national security. Well, it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. And so after the Reichstag fire, after Congress burned, he used Article 48 and he issued two executive orders. Let's just call it that. He suspended every part of the Constitution that, talked about personal freedom. And he legalized the arrest of social democrats and communists and anybody that disagreed with him. And then on March 21st, a few weeks later, he issued another executive order that made it absolutely illegal to speak out against him, to speak out against the party, to speak out against any party leaders. And 3 days after that, while a lot of the people that he had rounded up, like the deputies in the Reichstag, like the staff that is being attacked now by the Russians, like the staff from McCaskill's office. We also found out today Kamala Harris's office has been attacked, right? Like those staff members that reported, bad behavior and opposed Hitler, they were put in prison or they were exiled or they were forced into hiding to protect their lives. And then Congress was intimidated into passing the Enabling Act. The Enabling Act gave Hitler and his cabinet, the Mnuchins, the Wilbur Ross, former vice president of the Bank of Cyprus, which is so interesting, considering that in Manafort's trial, there are all these payments to suit stores. The reason why they put all that into evidence about his extravagant spending was because they were showing the payment of those giant bills for $15,000 suits. They were showing that those payments came from the Bank of Cyprus. Wilbur Ross was the vice president of the Bank of Cyprus, along with a Russian oligarch. The two of them. And they were laundering all kinds of money through the Bank of Cyprus. And Manafort was getting his bills paid from foreign banks. And the foreign banks were Cyprus banks. Just saying. It's just so interesting. But they passed the Enabling Act, and so Hitler was able to enact laws that overrode the Constitution. He got the power to imprison anybody that he deemed an enemy of the state, which is what, Trump's wet dream is. And that same day, the Nazi government announced the opening of the first colony in Dachau. And that Dachau originally started as a concentration camp or a colony to hold the Social Democrats, to hold the communists, because they had all these different parties like you have in Canada, right? Like somebody was talking to me the other day about all these different parties. And the same thing is true in England. The same thing is true, in parliamentary systems around the world. So Germany was no different. And he started to put into these holding colonies his political opponents. That's what Dachau was originally designed to do. And then they continued to attack all the opposing parties and any organization, like they, demonize Antifa now, or they demonize, anything that was anti-Tea Party, or, everybody was going to be demonized, and they were all going to be, intimidated and bullied by people who were supportive of the party. Now, what's really interesting is most people, just like here, were not supportive of this party, but they were terrified and they were intimidated by these massive rallies. And the people who were given this energy to go out and bully people and to, propagate these conspiracy theories that Adolf was feeding the public at these rallies. And then finally, they went after the labor unions and dissolved all the labor unions, all the trade labor unions, and then outlawed the Social Democrat Party. They actually outlawed it. You could not be a Social Democrat anymore. And that happened in June. So February, March, April, May, June. So this happened in the first 5 months. And then by July of 1933, the remaining political parties dissolved, and the only party left, the only legal party left in Germany, was Hitler's Nazi Party. They saw an amazing increase in violence and intimidation and terror toward their own people, toward the German population. And that's when Hitler started with the, what I believe the Q people and the Oath Keepers and all these lunatic, fringy people want to be. He organized those loyalists into the SA and the SS, the Gestapo, right? The secret police. And he created them in April. And these were the people who were loyal to Hitler's Nazi Party, just like these people, at these rallies. And it's like they're wearing their Q instead of wearing, SA or SS. I mean, it's the same damn thing. And so they were created in April, and they were interrogating and imprisoning their own, neighbors. They were spying on their own neighbors, and it was all being done under law and order. Law and order. Is that a Republican phrase or a Democratic phrase? See, because we don't run around saying things like that, we're pro-crime. Right. Democrats prefer to live in a cesspool of crime. Meanwhile, crime in the United States over the last 30 years has declined precipitously. And then they started going after other pieces of society, German society. This is when they started going after the Social Democrats were imprisoned, some of them killed, okay? Then they started going after homosexual men and putting them in prison. And then they started targeting Jews. And then they started targeting immigrants, Jewish immigrants. And then they started imprisoning judges, especially Jewish judges and lawyers. And then they went after minority-owned businesses. And by minority, I mean Jews were 1% of the population. They went after, Jewish-owned businesses. And then on April 1st, the Nazis called for a day-long boycott of Jewish businesses. And in some places, people started attacking Jewish businesses, but in other places, some Germans deliberately went and shopped in Jewish-owned businesses because they were trying to defy Hitler's government. But regardless, okay, the country was completely polarized, completely divided. Only a tiny sliver, like maybe 20% of the Germans, were down with this, but they were so scared of being imprisoned themselves because they saw other people besides, Jews being in prison. They saw other people besides for judges and politicians and lawyers being in prison. They saw homosexuals. They saw gypsies being in prison. They saw all kinds of people being imprisoned. And so that was just sheer intimidation. And people either stayed quiet because they were scared or didn't think it would last very long because Germany had gone through like a chancellor a year previous to this. And they thought, he won't last. We just got to wait out the year. and they said nothing, and they did nothing. And then anybody generally that was considered disloyal to Adolf Hitler, who had a government job, they were purged from the government. And then they waged an all-out war on ideas. After they got done imprisoning various judges and lawyers and Jewish business owners and gypsies and homosexuals and people that were disloyal, then they went after ideas.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Okay, so after Hitler, decided who was undesirable, and that was anybody that couldn't prove their German bloodline. It was gypsies, it was Jews, obviously, it was homosexuals, also the mentally ill. His political opponents were first, Social Democrats, communists. Obviously, they were put in Dachau. They were put in a concentration camp, which was a political prisoner camp. And then they went after they rounded up all these people, and they encouraged the German people to attack businesses that were run by Jews, and they started imprisoning judges and anybody disloyal to Adolf. They went after ideas, and they put Joseph Goebbels in charge of the Reich Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. Joseph Goebbels was put in charge of putting out fake news, propaganda, false ideas. And they went after, the pulpit. They went after preachers. They went after, anybody that had a religious sermon had to preach the Reich. Okay, they were not allowed to preach, Christianity or any other thing, right? They had to do it Catholicism. I mean, Hitler believed in, mysticism and devil worship. I mean, he was just a strange man. But they set out to coordinate every form of expression in Germany. First, they went after radio programs. Then they changed the textbooks. They changed the music. They changed the newspaper. All the newspapers. They made everybody that, had a congregation, they changed all their sermons. They changed artwork, all to demonize anybody who they felt was disloyal. And like I said, it was a lot of people. It was first the Social Democrats and the communists. And then after that, it was mentally ill. It was gypsies. It was anybody without German bloodlines. It was immigrants. It was, obviously Jews and Jewish owners of shops. It was judges. It was lawyers. It was like a purge of anybody that was disloyal. And this war then began fully on ideas and propaganda.
They have been hyperventilating over what we have exposed so far as a hoax, a conspiracy, a fabrication. And that is, they created about Donald Trump and Trump-Russia collusion, even though the media knows there's no evidence to prove any of this is true after nearly 18 months.
The Russian investigation is the opposite of a hoax. And now, indictments against Russian organizations and persons have been handed up.
This is something the media refuses to accept, as constitutional law professor Alan Dershowitz is explaining. Oh, this is rough for the media to handle. Collusion is not a crime.
While the U.S. Criminal Code does not criminalize colluding per se, it is a crime to conspire with a foreign adversary to influence or undermine our election or any other government action. Special counsel prosecutors have gotten indictments against more than 20 Russians, 3 Russian companies, and several former Trump campaign members, including guilty pleas from a foreign policy advisor and a national security advisor.
Comey and his buddies and Strzok to put the fix in to save Hillary's campaign. Then they quickly started spying on the Trump campaign.
The FBI did not place a spy in the Trump campaign. That's according to several Republican lawmakers and all of the evidence seen by Fox News. No spy.
But the fact that the server in the Trump organization was tapped by the government and another wiretap took place That's kind of scary.
Fox News knows of no evidence of any kind that the now President of the United States was surveilled at any time in any way. Full stop.
And until and unless members of the National Football League gain the respect for the flag in this country and those that have sacrificed, bled, and died fighting under that flag, I'm finished.
They're attacking the troops. They're attacking the flag, none of which they're doing. They're not doing any of that. They're upset about racial injustice in the country, and they're upset about the things that the president has said.
See what I mean? That's one channel, okay? That is just that is an intra channel war. That is an intra-Fox war. And guess what? That happened with Adolf too. In July of 1933, Hitler started to notice, Adolf did, I hate to say his name, but that there was opposition within the party, the Nazi party itself, which was the only legal party left. Everything else was illegal. Ideas were banned. You couldn't speak. You couldn't say, if you were a preacher, you had to preach the Nazi Reich. If you were a newspaper, first you had to prove your German bloodline in order to even be a reporter at a German-owned newspaper, where the owner also had to prove that his bloodline was pure German, Aryan, okay? All this was going on in the media. And even though he had, well, not even though, because he had, Adolf did, made the media do propaganda, and because they had locked up so many people, political people, judges, lawyers, mentally ill, homosexuals, gypsies, Jews, social democrats, etc., the party itself started to say, whoa, this is going down a really freaky road. This could, if this goes any further, he's going to start a war that could only end up in our defeat. And so, all of a sudden, there was opposition within the Nazi Party itself. Just like you're starting to see some of that now. And Adolf understood that. But what he had was this militia. What he had was this SA. What he had was this SS. And the members that volunteered to be loyal to, Adolf, because he had very cool uniforms. I will say he had great graphic design skills and really, really good taste in uniforms. Those people outnumbered the German military people. Now, remember, on any given day in the United States, we say that we have 1 million active duty members of the military. 1 million. And they're deployed all over the world, as you know. We have troops in the DMZ, we have troops in South Korea, we have troops in the Middle East, we have troops in Germany, we have troops, all over the world, as you know. And this loyalist militia that was loyal only to Adolf outnumbered the actual military. And the leader of the militia, the leader of the loyalists, was a guy named Ernst Röhm. Ernst Röhm began to be too powerful for Adolf because he controlled all the armed crazy people. And so on June 30th, 1934, you have this thing called the Night of the Long Knives. That's when Adolf ordered the SS and the regular army to join forces and to murder the SA leader, to murder this Ernst Röhm guy. And they did. They also murdered other political opponents that were inside the Nazi Party. So, for instance, Jeff Flake, or people that they call rhinos, you know what I mean? People that are just not welcome in their party anymore, which is the party of Trump. They have to be purged. They have to go. And they did that. They did that. And they killed 200 people on the Night of the Long Knives. And then the Germans, the public at large, started to believe that the purge of the Nazi Party, the purge of the militia, the actual killing of the guy who was running the militia, because Adolf thought, well, he's got all these armed dudes and they're loyal to me, but you know what? He's got too much power. I want to control his guys. And so he murdered the guy who was in charge of the militia, right? And so that purge was viewed by the Nazi, by the German people, ordinary German people, as a terrorist attack in the streets. And they got really super, super intimidated. They started to realize that he was going to control everything all the time, including their lives. And they just stayed very, very quiet. They just didn't want to. They might have tried to prevent all this from happening, but they didn't think it would last because they had been through chancellors, almost one new chancellor every year for this long period of time. And they thought he would last a year and they just should wait it out. But they were wrong. They were wrong. And they stopped resisting. They just stopped resisting. And so to this day, it's very interesting how far the public would go to avoid being jailed or to avoid inconvenience or losing their job or their government job or their store or their livelihood or their, the pulpit or, whatever, or their mentally ill child. It's just so interesting how far people in the public in Germany would go along with this because they were scared. They were literally intimidated into going along with a tiny little fraction of the population, a tiny little group. But I will tell you, one of the things that Adolf did was each time he would double down and each time he would go after each new group, whether it was the homosexuals, the mentally ill, children of, babies who were, born with Down syndrome, whatever, he decided was undesirable and that they weren't going to represent the Aryan nation properly, which was this sick fantasy of his, and he would round people up or put them in camps or whatever. He would test that message. He would have a rally and he would tell them who's undesirable, why they're undesirable. It would be broadcast on the radio, because they didn't have TV. It would be put in the newspaper why this new group had to be excluded from German society, why they had to go away, why they had to be deported, why they had to be intimidated, why you had to not, go to their store, why you had to avoid them at all costs. Just, all this. He would test the message at a rally. And he would see whether or not the message was resonating with the people.
So here was the story by the fake news. The president was 15 minutes late for the Queen. Wrong. And then here's the rest of the story. No, here's the rest. Here's the rest of the story. So they said I was late when I was actually early, number one. Number two, I guess the meeting was scheduled for 15 minutes, and it lasted for almost an hour. The president overstayed. So I was late and I overstayed, and honestly, folks, it was such a beautiful, beautiful visit and afternoon. But they can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
Now, some Germans got swept up and became true believers, obviously. They were swept up in the energy. They were swept up in the excitement. They were from little places. There was nothing to do. And then all of a sudden they'd get a rally. And it would be exciting for them. And there would be so much energy. These rallies got bigger and bigger. And then they started having parades. And they appreciated the order that Adolf seemed to be bringing to German society in a unsettled time. And the rest of the people, they were left to feel intimidated. They were left to be made afraid to act. And they did nothing because they were scared. They would lose their job. They would lose their livelihood. And then after Adolf intimidated a great mass of the people into supporting, at least publicly, his program, after the vilification of the Social Democrats, after the vilification of everybody that had anything to do with the Weimar Republic. He started a violent revolution. But the first victims were the moderately progressive Social Democrats. Why? Because they had more widespread support than Adolf.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
If you want to believe in waterboarding, all you have to do is watch somebody steal your kid and you capture the person that was assisting, and then they know where your kid is. I think most people might resort to waterboarding.
Waterboarding is torture and is not permitted under Army Field Manual guidelines. Torture is illegal under international law. The Supreme Court noted in 2004 that the United States has a historical record of regarding waterboarding as a war crime and has prosecuted individuals for such practice in the past.
Anybody like us, we're just climate deniers, but it went from literally global cooling in the next ice age to global warming, and now they just have broad climate change. And of course, they even had to, in some instances, we know they manipulated data.
Dozens of United States government scientists on climate change. They conclude climate change is real and driven almost exclusively by human activity. Climate change is happening mostly because of the fuels we burn for energy, fuels which emit greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. This was, even before today, a scientific fact.
According to reports, Obama's Justice Department, they utilized at least one informant to spy on multiple Trump campaign officials and associates during the 2016 election. And by the way, the media is lying about it.
President Trump has also claimed the feds spied on his campaign with an informant. The president calls it Spygate. Fox News can confirm it is not. Fox News knows of no evidence to support the president's claim that lawmakers from both parties say using an informant to investigate suspected ties to Russia is not spying. It's part of the normal investigative process.
And he's dragging out, by the way, the investigation. He wants to derail many pro-Trump Republicans in the midterms.
Unfounded, not based in fact or reason, with no evidence to support them. The president says, back up. The president says that Robert Mueller and his team are meddling in the midterms. There's nothing to support that claim.
Without a doubt, this summit was a tremendous success, and complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization of the entire Korean Peninsula is now in the works.
Well, America demanded complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. CVID, complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization. There is no guarantee of that. Not even words to that effect.
All of this without any concessions from the United States, nothing.
But Kim Jong-un, he wanted the photos, the seat at the table. He wanted the legitimacy that came with the event, the handshake with America's president. And he wanted those military exercises with the Americans and the South Koreans that happen every year to stop. Kim Jong-un got it all for actually doing nothing.
Between 2009 and 2013, the chairman of Uranium One used his family foundation to make millions of dollars in donations to the Clinton Foundation before and after Hillary approved the sale of the company to Putin and Russia. And that's not all. Other Uranium One investors, guess what? They also donated millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation.
The accusation is predicated on the charge that Secretary Clinton approved the sale. She did not. A committee of 9 evaluated the sale. The president approved the sale. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission and others had to offer permits, and none of the uranium was exported for use by the U.S. to Russia. That is Uranium One.
You get it? You get it? I got to tell you, the takeover of media in Germany in 1933 was done just to abuse social democrats. It was done just to abuse people who were not loyal, to harass them at every turn. They started, saying that these were the people that were trying to overthrow the German nation, and that these people were committing acts of treason. And in 1935 alone, there were 23,000 political prisoners in Germany's jails. This is what people don't know. There were 23,000 political prisoners in jail. Dachau was a camp for political prisoners. 5,000 people were being tried and condemned for treason every single year. And in speech after speech after speech, Adolf and all the other leading Nazis, they attacked every one of these unloyal people. They attacked the mentally ill. They attacked homosexuals. They attacked gypsies. They attacked Christians who, refused to go along. They attacked, of course, the Jews. I mean, the Jews, we were orchestrating the whole thing, right? Yeah, we were planning from, our little perch of 1% of the German population. We were destroying Germany. We were going to destroy Germany's military. We were going to destroy German culture itself. We were going to destroy the Aryan race simply by our presence. Adolf was a conspiracy theorist without equal, maybe until now. Adolf forged the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was his conspiracy theory. He forged it. Actually, it was forged. And he, probably in 1919, I think they forged it. And they made up this whole worldwide conspiracy. And the conspiracy said there was a deep state. And the deep state was directed by a secret cabal, probably located somewhere in Paris. I swear to God. And it was waging this massive culture war. And the culture war would annihilate and overthrow the German race to the point where the white German man would be rendered impotent. And no matter what your political views were as a Jew or a disloyal member of any other political party, you were part of the plot. You were part of the deep state plot.
Waiting in line in a driving rain, very motivated Trump supporters wanting to see the president in person in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
We are Q.
Some of those people wearing and holding the 17th letter of the alphabet.
Are you holding a big red, white, and blue Q? Why do you have that?
It's a movement, man. It's the shift. I can feel it coming. Some call it the Great Awakening.
You're wearing a shirt that says Q, WWG, 1WGA. What does that mean?
It means where we go one, we go all.
QAnon is the people that believe in what Trump's trying to do to change our country.
That is a generalization. More specifically, what QAnon is a fringe movement in which many baseless conspiracy theories are discussed on the internet, organized around the idea of an anonymous but well-connected person or persons nicknamed Q.
Your shirt says the storm is here, QAnon. What does that mean to you?
Well, I've been following all the posts since October 28th.
On the internet, from QAnon.
Right, started on 4chan.
The person or people who say they're Q.
Right.
What do you think Q is, by the way?
It's an entity of 10 or less people that have
involved with the government?
High clearance, security clearance.
And how do you know that?
Well, I'm just telling you, this is what it appears to be.
What it appears to be. So you don't have any proof of that. That's what you're guessing it is.
And you don't have any proof there isn't.
We've all been gathering online and talking together as Americans and uniting. And
do you think it's maybe just makes you comfortable talking with other frustrated, sometimes angry people?
Yes.
But maybe it's not true because there's no evidence of it. It's just stuff being talked about on the internet, right?
There hasn't been any non-evidence yet.
A major mantra among QAnon followers? The press is the enemy.
You guys are.
So you don't believe in the First Amendment?
Oh, I totally believe in the First Amendment.
Well, you don't. You just said the press is the enemy.
Well, you guys are weaponized. You guys are totally weaponized by the CIA.
What is that?
You guys are weaponized
by the CIA.
by the CIA.
I don't know anybody in the CIA except a couple of people I've interviewed over the years.
Fair. Okay.
But weaponized, what does that even mean? Like you say stuff that doesn't even mean anything.
The term
weaponized by the CIA.
Conspiracy theorists. The term.
Do you think I'm weaponized by the CIA?
Maybe not to your knowledge, and that's unfortunate.
You believe there is a deep state.
Yes.
And what do you think that deep state's doing? You think they're running this country?
I think they were, and they're petrified now. Right. Because they're losing their control.
But Donald Trump's the president. He's running the country, right?
Yeah, but he's having to fight against the
deep state. He said he could do it all himself. Everything would be so easy when he came into office. And you think he's fighting with the deep state a year and a half into his term?
I think he's been fighting since before he was elected.
And who is in this deep state? Who are the people in it?
Oh, I definitely believe that, like, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas.
So you think the Clintons, the Bushes, and the Obamas are running this country as we stand here in the rain?
No, they're trying.
The anonymous Q is a hero to many here. One man actually hoping to communicate with Q by looking straight into our camera.
Is it possible you're believing bogus information, yes or no?
Is it possible that I'm believing bogus information? No. I mean, let's see. Let's see, Q.
Let's see, Q. Q, talk to me. Q. Oh, this is so... I mean, this conspiracy could only, be accomplished in this day and age, not in the 30s, because there was no internet. You understand? But the takeover of media, newspapers, which have always been with us, ever since the printing press and the radio, that was the first casualty. That was the first casualty of a complete takeover of an entire country and the invasion of its neighbors, the imprisonment of 6 million Jews, the death of another 6 million who were deemed to be undesirables, and that included mentally ill, gypsies, homosexuals, habitual criminals, Jehovah's Witnesses, Christians who wouldn't toe the line, who weren't seen as being loyal enough. That is how this stuff goes, and that is how it happens. And this man is only a year and a half into his reign, and quite frankly, he's already exhibited so many features of a propaganda machine designed to purge political enemies, intimidate political enemies, especially democratic socialists, especially Democrats, if you want. It is just so, it's so similar. Do you see how the Trump administration's China looks a lot like the Hitler family's China? And let me tell you something. Ordinary Germans never went along with this. They were never completely won over by this destruction or this persecution or this intimidation. Only a minority of people caught up in the rallies and the excitement of it all actually applauded this. Only a very tiny minority. The great mass of Germans, their crime was they did nothing to stop this. There was no civil courage. They were cowed into submission by a ruthless conspiracy dictator, a demagogue, a con man. And that con man had absolutely no limits on what he would do to people he hated. No limits at all, from using, prisons and camps and slurs and art and pointing at people and saying they're to blame for your lot in life, and if we could just purge ourselves of them, if we could just get rid of them, let us separate the families, let us break up these families, let us do this. His indifference to suffering is so legendary. His willingness to devise and use the internet and television and weapons of mass distraction, just like some other guy in the 30s, is pretty uncanny. So Don Jr., thank you for making me explore the Nazi platform versus the Democratic platform, which has absolutely no features in common.
Well, I think you just got to talk about the facts. You got to talk about the history. You got to look at the platforms. I mean, one of the most interesting things, I put it out on my social last night, was when I was watching the movie before this to make sure, hey, am I coming to something that makes sense? Is, you see the Nazi platform in the early 1930s and what was actually put out there as there, and you look at it compared to like the DNC platform of today, and you're saying, man, those things are awfully similar to a point where it's actually scary. And I mean, to me, that was one of the most striking things I took from the movie, and it's because it's the exact opposite of what you've been told. When you have, a bunch of kids in dreadlocks running around screaming about fascism and all these things, it's like, wait a second, have you actually taken a history class? Do you actually know what these words mean that you're running around and spewing? And I think they don't.
All right, let's squeeze in a call. Greg in Westport, Connecticut.
Hi, Randy. Love your show. What I wanted to talk about ended up being really relevant to what you've been talking about, because it's about propaganda, and you could extend that to Stalinist Russia or Mao's China or even neo-fascist regimes.
Any dictatorship that you like. It's just that he compared it to, he said that Democrats, social Democrats, that we're Nazis. But it's any dictatorship is like this.
And I wanted to quickly share this exchange that I had with this Trumpista yesterday, because Trump at his Nuremberg rally 2 days ago was saying, they're trying to pass laws to get illegals to vote. And then this guy, sure enough, on Twitter yesterday was repeating that. So normally I don't engage with these people, but I was like, I've had it, bring it to me. So it turns out what he's referring to is in San Francisco, they say that residents of the city can vote on the school board. And that's what they're using as an argument to, for vote suppression and that sort of thing. But this is how things work, that they fund it through Roseanne, they fund it through D'Souza and stuff like that. And then it becomes actual policy, it becomes vilification of people, and it becomes oppressive laws.
Yeah. There's no question. And in every dictatorship that, if you wanted to study any of them, how did Stalin manage to kill 12 million of his own people? And, people forget that Stalin killed 12 million Russians.
Yes.
So, all the dictatorships, they have the same MO. They have the same playbook. They have the same menu of choices, and then the ingredients are all the same, and they make the same sloppy, nasty gruel. They make the same dish and they serve it up to the people. It never ceases to be repetitive, and that's why you always have to know your history. And what the Trumps are doing, and Don Jr. obviously, is trying to tell you everything you ever learned is wrong. Only Donald Trump is right. And that is so indicative of a dictator's mindset, an authoritarian's mindset, somebody who is a demagogue or a con man in this case, trying to enrich himself on your back. It never ceases to amaze me how similar it always is, and that there are things that you can see and notice and know about how it's coming, when it's coming, where it's coming from, and to stop it. The biggest crime is to do nothing. The biggest crime is to say nothing. The biggest crime is to turn it off and to turn your back. That is, as we say, a shanda. Been saying that all week. It means anathema. It means it's poison. It means it's bad. All right, I got 5 podcasts to give away. Thank you to Marianne and Roland, who donated 10 podcasts. We gave away 5 yesterday. We'll give away 5 to the first 5 callers right now. 561-270-3844. Have a great weekend. Buy a stinking podcast.